I thought I knew what family meant. But after 73 years of giving my absolute all, my own son, his wife, and her conniving mother planned to strip me of everything I owned, steal my life savings, and discard me like old furniture into a nursing home. They thought I was just a helpless old woman. They were about to learn how wrong they truly were. For 73 years, I carried this family on my shoulders. 73 long years of pouring every ounce of myself into this land, into them. And this was their repayment. Mom, you stay at the farm. Someone has to look after the garden, my son David announced that morning, his lips stretched into that sickeningly fake smile he'd picked up from his wife, Amber. She stood beside him in a new red dress, her eyes raking over me as if I were nothing more than a hired hand. And her mother, Catherine? She barely bothered to look up from her expensive sunglasses, engrossed in her phone, acting as if I simply didn't exist. It's only for a week, Mrs. Margaret. Just for a wedding. You understand? Catherine murmured, still without making eye contact. Only for a week. As if nurturing this garden, this farm, for decades was a trivial game. As if my 73 years of dedication, my entire life's work, meant absolutely nothing. I watched them pile into the car, their suitcases bursting with clothes I had washed and ironed, towels I had folded, shoes I had polished. They were off to the coast, ready to squander the money this very land produced. And me? I was left behind, under the searing sun, my hands ingrained with the soil they so arrogantly believed belonged to them. But then, as the dust cloud from their departing car slowly settled on the road, and an unnerving silence filled the now empty house, the old kitchen phone shrieked, a sound that sliced through the air like a sudden knife. It was the bank. Mrs. Margaret, we need to confirm some urgent transactions, a formal voice announced on the other end. My heart didn't just stop from fear, it seized with something far deeper, a cold dread born from a suspicion that had been growing like a poisonous weed in my chest. What kind of transactions? I managed to ask, even though a terrible certainty already told me I wouldn't like the answer. Your son, David, attempted to make a transfer of $50,000 this morning. And there have also been attempts to change the ownership on several accounts. Since you are the primary account holder, we need your authorization. $50,000. That was the money we'd saved from selling the cattle last month. The money earmarked for fixing the perpetually leaking roof, for buying my essential medicine, for ensuring this farm, our lifeblood, continued to thrive. I don't authorize anything, I declared, my voice a raw, unfamiliar rasp. Block everything. Right now. I slammed the receiver down, my hands still trembling. I stood there, utterly alone in the kitchen where I had lovingly prepared thousands of meals for a family who, it turned out, saw me as nothing more than an inconvenient nuisance. The once bright yellow walls, which I had painted with such hope 10 years ago, now seemed like silent, accusing witnesses to all the years of silent endurance and simmering resentment. Later that night, as I meticulously watered the ripe tomatoes and crisp lettuce they would undoubtedly expect to eat upon their return, my phone vibrated. It was David. Mom, what happened with the cards? We can't withdraw a single cent. Can't pay for anything. His voice was shrill, desperate, on the verge of hysteria. In the background, I could distinctly hear Amber screaming, and Catherine's elegant, venomous curses, the ones she reserved for when she thought no one was listening. Mom, are you there? Answer me. I took a slow, deep breath, letting the scent of damp earth and the jasmine flowers I'd planted 20 years ago, when I still foolishly believed this family valued me, fill my lungs. I'm here, David. But Mom, we're stranded in this hotel. We can't even pay the bill. What did you do? What I did. As if protecting my own hard-earned money was some heinous crime. As if I had no right to decide what was rightfully mine. I did what I had to do, son. But Mom, it's an emergency. We need the money. An emergency. Their frivolous beach vacation was an emergency, but my vital blood pressure medicine was not. The constantly leaking roof dripping over my bed was not. The enormous expenses of the farm that sustained their entire parasitic lifestyle were not. The only emergency here, David, I stated, my voice steady now, is that I finally opened my eyes. I ended the call right then, at that critical, liberating moment. I had worked my entire life for this family, sacrificing my dreams, my youth, my health. And now, I discovered they weren't just taking my efforts, they were planning to take everything, even the last shred I had left. But there was something crucial they didn't know. Something I'd uncovered just 3 days prior, when my dear neighbor, Helen, came over for coffee and shared a disturbing piece of gossip she'd heard in town. Something that would change everything. This story, as I soon realized, was only just beginning. 3 days before the bank call, Helen, my steadfast neighbor, had come to visit, just as she did every afternoon. She always brought her favorite white ceramic mug, adorned with the flowers I'd given her last year. She settled into the old rocking chair on the porch, the very one where my late husband used to read his newspaper, his presence still a comforting echo. "Margaret," she began, her soft voice laced with an unusual gravity, "I need to tell you something I overheard in town." I was peeling oranges for juice, but the shift in her tone made my hands freeze. The bright peels tumbled to the floor like small, withered suns. "What is it, Helen?" She glanced nervously towards the road, as if afraid invisible ears might be listening. "Yesterday, I was at old Mr. Henderson's law office. I'd gone to renew my land papers, remember? And while I was waiting, I distinctly overheard Amber talking on the phone. My heart began to hammer frantically against my ribs. Amber at a lawyer's office? That couldn't possibly be a coincidence. She was talking to someone about selling the farm, Margaret. She said they already had a buyer. That they just needed to convince you to sign some papers, which they'd tell you were for renewing the insurance. The oranges rolled unheeded across the wooden floor. My hands trembled uncontrollably, like leaves caught in a sudden storm. "Are you sure about what you heard?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "As sure as my name is Helen Marie, and there's more," she continued, her voice dropping. She also mentioned something about changing the bank accounts to David's name. Said it was more convenient for a woman your age. And then, Margaret, I heard something that truly chilled my blood. She said that after the sale, they were going to take you to a nursing home in the city, that they'd already set aside the money to pay for it. A nursing home. As if I were a us. A less piece of old furniture, to be cast aside once my purpose was served. As if my 73 years of life, of unwavering dedication, were suddenly worth absolutely nothing. That night, sleep was an impossible dream. I lay wide awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling where rain sometimes leaked, replaying every strange conversation from the past few months. The way Amber and Catherine would abruptly fall silent whenever I entered a room. The hushed, whispered phone calls. The papers they'd hastily stash away when I came near. I vividly remembered when Amber arrived 6 months ago with that ominous green folder, aggressively insisting I sign some insurance documents. I'd signed, without reading, trusting them like an utter fool. What, truly, was in those papers? Everything clicked into terrifying place. David's insistent pressure for me to update my bank information. Their constant urging to grant them power over my accounts in case something happened to me. Catherine's sudden, frequent visits, she who had barely acknowledged me before, now arriving with store-bought cakes and those dreadful, fake smiles. I rose before dawn the next morning, my mind a whirl of anger and hurt, and walked every inch of the farm. I ran my callous fingers over every tree I had personally planted, the avocado trees, budding when David was a boy of 10, the magnificent mango trees that had grown tall alongside him, the vibrant garden where I had joyfully taught my granddaughter to recognize each plant, before Amber had coldly declared it too dangerous to bring her here. This land bore my footprints on every single meter. My sweat had watered every furrow. My tears had fed every tiny seed. And they, my own family, intended to rip it from me, like snatching a cherished toy from a defenseless child. The very next day, before the sun had fully risen, I walked to Helen's house. Her chickens were already clucking softly in the yard, and the comforting scent of burning wood drifted from her chimney. I desperately needed to think, to be in a place where I felt truly safe. Her small kitchen always welcomed me with the warm aroma of cinnamon and freshly brewed coffee. "Helen," I confessed, my voice raw with turmoil, "I think I have to do something before it's too late." She poured me a steaming cup of coffee into my flowered mug and sat across from me. Her eyes, the color of old honey, met mine with an unspoken understanding that only decades of true friendship can forge. "What do you need, Margaret?" she asked softly. "I need to go to the bank today, and to the lawyer, too. But first, I need you to help me review all the papers I've signed lately." We returned to my house and sat at the dining room table. I pulled out all the folders, all the documents I had diligently saved but never fully understood. Helen, with her sharper eyesight, painstakingly read the fine print. "Margaret," she said after an hour, her voice now trembling with shock. "These papers you signed last month, they give David the power to sell properties in your name." My world lurched, then spun. I had unknowingly signed my own death sentence. "And this other one," she continued, her voice heavy with dread, "this one gives him full access to all your bank accounts, Margaret. With these papers, they can do whatever they want with you." I cried. For the first time in years, tears streamed down my face, hot and furious, like a child betrayed. I wept for my naivety, for my blind trust, for having raised a son capable of such monstrous betrayal. But the tears dried just as quickly as they came. In their place, a powerful emotion surged, something I hadn't felt in a very long time, pure, unadulterated rage. A clean, clear rage that filled me with an electrifying energy I thought I'd lost forever. We went to the bank together. There, the manager, a young woman with a genuinely concerned voice, explained everything David had tried to do over the past 2 months: loan applications using the farm as collateral, insidious attempts to change authorized signatures, repeated requests for copies of all my bank statements. "Luckily, Mrs. Margaret," she told me, "you gave us specific instructions years ago not to authorize anything without your physical presence. Your son seemed very upset when we told him we needed to speak with you first. He even brought a lawyer last week, insisting he had a legal right. Very upset." Of course, he was upset. His carefully laid plans to rob me blind were crumbling because of a crucial detail he'd overlooked. Years ago, after my husband passed, I had, perhaps instinctively, put those restrictions in place, just in case one day I lost my memory. "What can I do to protect myself completely?" I asked, my resolve hardening. "Cancel all powers of attorney you've granted. Change all your passwords. Establish new, ironclad restrictions. And if you want my advice, Mrs. Margaret, do it today." Next, we went to see Mr. Davies, the town lawyer. He was an older man, the kind who instantly inspires confidence with his calm demeanor. His office, filled with ancient books and the scent of old wood, exuded wisdom. "Mrs. Margaret, what you're telling me is very serious," he said gravely, "but it absolutely has a solution. These documents you signed can be revoked. You were clearly under emotional distress, you didn't have independent legal representation." He meticulously explained my rights, showing me precisely how to protect my assets, how to ensure no one could ever take what was rightfully mine. I signed new documents, changed all authorizations, and implemented legal locks that neither David, nor his wife, nor his mother-in-law could ever break. "And if they try to force me to sign something?" I asked, a lingering tremor in my voice. "These documents protect you, Mrs. Margaret. No one can force you to do anything with your property. And if anyone tries, that's called coercion, and it's a crime. Besides, I've already notified the bank and the notary's office. Any document they try to submit with your signature will now be verified directly with you." I returned home that afternoon, my entire being feeling profoundly different, as if I had just woken from a long, confusing nightmare. The farm still looked the same, the familiar green mountains in the background, the endless sky, the same trees I had planted with my own hands decades ago. But I was no longer the same woman who had left that morning. For the first time in months, perhaps even years, I felt completely in control of my own life. That night, when David finally called to tell me about their trip, I already knew exactly what I was going to do. I let them leave, let them believe they had one. That old Margaret would obediently stay home, tending the garden like a loyal, unpaid employee. But while they were packing their bags, I was packing mine too, not to leave, but to stay, to plant my roots deeper than ever before. And when the bank phone rang the very next day, I was ready. The storm was just beginning, but for the first time in a long time, I finally had an umbrella. By the way, if you're still with me through this unbelievable roller coaster of a story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There are always more jaw-dropping tales coming your way. David's frantic call woke me on the second day of their vacation. His voice sounded different, higher-pitched, filled with that whiny tone he used as a child whenever he knew he'd done something terribly wrong. "Mom, there's a problem. The cards aren't working. None of them." I slowly sat up in bed, feeling the gentle morning sun stream through the window that overlooked my peaceful yard. The chickens were already clucking, demanding their breakfast. Life here was going on as normal, while theirs was catastrophically falling apart 200 miles away. "What kind of problem, David? We can't pay for anything. Not the hotel, not the food, not the gas. It's like all the accounts are frozen." I could hear Amber's enraged screams in the background, her voice distorted over the phone, but I clearly made out a few words: useless. "Your mother, fix this, Mom. I need you to go to the bank right now. It must be a system error. A system error." As if I were still that naive, easily manipulated woman. "It's not an error, David." Silence. A long, stunned silence, punctuated only by the faint sound of crashing waves I could hear in the background. They were on a beautiful beach, lounging under expensive umbrellas, while I was supposedly sweating away in my garden. "What do you mean it's not an error?" "I mean, I cancelled all the cards. I froze all the joint accounts. I revoked all the authorizations you had." Another silence followed, this one heavier, thicker with dawning horror. "Mom, you can't do that. We depend on that money." "We?" As if we were partners. As if they had worked a single day on this farm to earn that money. And whose money do you think that is, David? It's family money. You can't just leave us stranded here. Family. That manipulative word they had been weaponizing against me for months. Family when they needed money. Family when they wanted me to sign damning papers. But not family when they were secretly planning to sell my home and imprison me in a nursing home. "David, come home. All of you. Right now." "We can't come. We don't have money for gas." "Then walk, or borrow, or do whatever you have to do. But come home." I hung up before he could utter another word. This time, my hands didn't tremble. I felt a strange, profound calm, like the clarity that washes over you after the initial shock of an accident wears off, and you realize you're still alive, stronger than you ever knew. That morning, I worked in the garden with an intensity one hadn't felt in years, like a woman reclaiming her own soul. I planted new seeds of fragrant cilantro and delicate parsley. I meticulously watered the tomatoes, heavy and red, just beginning to ripen. I ruthlessly pulled the stubborn weeds that choked the tender lettuce. Every single movement was a powerful affirmation: this land is mine. These plants are mine. This life is mine. Helen arrived around noon, as she always did. But this time, she didn't bring her flowered mug. Instead, she carried a bag brimming with freshly baked pastries and, to my surprise, a bottle of bourbon. To celebrate, she declared, a wide, joyful smile crinkling her entire face. "Celebrate what?" I asked, a faint smile playing on my own lips. "That you finally got your nerve back, Margaret." We settled onto the porch, savoring the sweet pastries and taking small sips of the bourbon, which warmed my throat in the most delightful way. The midday sun bathed us like a golden blessing. "Do you think I did the right thing, Helen?" I asked, a flicker of doubt still remaining. "Honey, the only thing you did wrong was taking so long to do it," she replied, her gaze firm. She then told me that for months, she had watched me fading away, how my smile had vanished when I spoke of David, how my shoulders had begun to stoop under the unbearable weight of always being available, always giving, for everyone else. Your late husband, God rest his soul, once told me, she recalled, her voice soft with memory, Helen, if anything happens to me, make sure no one ever takes advantage of Margaret. She's too good for her own good. Those words pierced straight through to my soul. My beloved husband, it turned out, had seen something I had stubbornly refused to see for far too many years. The phone rang again at 3 o'clock that afternoon. This time, it was Amber. Mother-in-law, we need to talk. Her voice had completely shed its usual fake sweetness, now it was sharp, brittle, and utterly desperate. Speak. What's going on? Why did you do that with the accounts? What do you think, Amber? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. We're stranded here. I rose from the porch rocking chair and walked into the kitchen, needing movement, needing to pace during this conversation. You know what, Amber? I think you do know. I think you know exactly why I did what I did. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? You don't know anything about a certain conversation at Mr. Henderson's law office, do you? You don't know anything about papers to sell the farm? You don't know anything about plans to take me to a nursing home? Total, deafening silence. I couldn't even hear the distant waves in the background anymore. Mother-in-law, don't call me mother-in-law. Mothers-in-law are family, and you stopped being my family the day you decided to rob me. It wasn't robbery. It was for your own good. A woman your age can't manage such a large property on her own. There it was. The ugly truth, finally laid bare. A woman my age. As if 73 were a debilitating disease. As if a lifetime of experience were a crippling disability. And who decided that? I challenged. You? Your mother? My own son? We were all worried about you. Lies. They were worried about the money, about the property, about what they could greedily snatch if I simply disappeared from the picture. I heard her thrust the phone to someone else. It was Catherine. Margaret, let's be reasonable. You can't stay alone on that farm forever. You need help. You need care. Catherine's voice dripped with condescension, as if she were patiently explaining something to a foolish child. You know what I need, Catherine? I need you and your daughter to stay away from my family. I need you to stop manipulating my son. And I need you to understand that this farm will be mine until the day I die. You're making a terrible mistake. Without us, you can't handle the business. You don't understand banks or taxes or anything. There it was again. The same old, tired song. The poor, helpless old woman who doesn't understand anything. The same woman who had managed this farm for 40 years, raised prize cattle, negotiated with shrewd buyers, paid taxes, and managed employees long before Amber even knew how to write her name. You know what, Catherine? I said, a dangerous calm in my voice. You're right about one thing. I did make a terrible mistake. But it wasn't today. It was 6 months ago, when I trusted you. I hung up for the second time that day. This time, I trembled a little, not from fear, but from a strange, exhilarating energy coursing through my body, as if I had been asleep for years and was finally, gloriously, waking up completely. Helen was still on the porch, rocking gently, gazing at the distant mountains. Everything okay? She asked, without needing to turn and look at me. Everything's perfect. That night, I ate dinner alone for the first time in months, yet I didn't feel lonely. I made myself some scrambled eggs with tomatoes and onions, freshly picked from my own garden. The silence of the house didn't weigh on me, it embraced me, a comforting blanket. After dinner, I stepped out into the yard and gazed at the stars. It had been years since I had seen them so clearly. perhaps because it had been years since I'd allowed myself the time, or the peace of mind, to look up. They would be back tomorrow, furious, desperate, no doubt armed with a new plan to convince me I had lost my mind. But for the first time in a very long time, I knew exactly who I was, and precisely what I wanted. They arrived at dusk on the third day, a storm I had seen coming from miles away. David's car kicked up a furious cloud of dust on the road, taking several minutes to settle. I was watering the garden, but I deliberately left the hose running and sat back in my rocking chair on the porch, waiting for them. They emerged from the car like clumsy actors in a poorly rehearsed play. David came first, wearing that familiar scolded child face he used to make when his father caught him in some mischief. Next, Amber, in a wrinkled green dress, her hair disheveled from the journey. Finally, Catherine, adjusting her expensive sunglasses, even though the sun was already setting. None of them looked directly at me at first. They just stood there, awkwardly, as if waiting for me to speak, as if I owed them an explanation. The silence stretched so long that even the crickets fell quiet. "Well," I finally said, without moving from my rocking chair. David was the first to walk towards the porch, his steps heavy on the old wooden planks his father had laid 15 years ago. "Mom, we need to talk." Talk. He sat on the step, adopting the same submissive posture he'd used as a child when he wanted me to forgive him. But he was 42 now, and those childhood tricks no longer worked on me. "I don't understand what happened. Why did you do what you did?" "You really don't understand, David?" Amber approached then, her high heels comically out of place on a farm, making her walk like an awkward duck. "Mother-in-law, I think there was a misunderstanding. We never meant to hurt you." I looked at her directly for the first time. Her eyes were swollen, she'd probably cried during the trip, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of pure frustration, of having lost something. "A misunderstanding? Is that what you call planning to sell my house behind my back? We just wanted what was best for you." Catherine, who had stayed by the car as if poised for immediate escape, interjected, her voice carrying clearly to the porch. "Margaret, a woman your age shouldn't be alone in such an isolated place. It's dangerous." I rose from the rocking chair for the first time since their arrival, my legs feeling solid, firm, as if they had miraculously regained a strength I'd forgotten I possessed. "Dangerous? You know what's truly dangerous, Catherine? Trusting family who plan to rob you. Signing papers without reading them, because you foolishly believe your own son would never harm you." David stood up too. In his eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before, naked fear. Fear that his elaborate scheme had utterly failed. "Mom, the papers you signed were just to protect you, so that if something happened to you, we could help you." "Protect me? By calling me crazy? By telling people in town I'm losing my memory?" The color drained from his face. He hadn't known I'd overheard that conversation last week, when they thought I was napping. "I never." "Yes, you did. You told Mr. Henderson that I was starting to show signs of dementia, that sometimes I didn't remember things, that it was necessary for you to have legal control over my decisions." Amber took a hasty step back, her expensive heels sinking into the soft garden soil. "David, maybe we should go." "She's upset." "I'm not leaving. She's my mom, and I'm going to fix this." "Fix what, exactly?" I asked, my voice coming out louder than I expected, filling the tense space between us. "Fix this misunderstanding. Make you understand that everything we did was with you in mind." I stepped off the porch and walked until I stood directly in front of him. David was tall, he always had been, but at that moment, I felt taller, more formidable than him. "You want me to understand? Fine. Then explain to me why you had a buyer for the farm. Explain why you had already set aside money for a nursing home. Explain why Amber was looking up prices for apartments in the city." Every word I uttered was like a physical blow. I watched them visibly shrink, desperately searching for excuses they no longer possessed. "Mom, we..." "No more lies, David. I've heard enough lies. Catherine finally approached, walking with that fake elegance she reserved for when she wanted to impress. Margaret, let's be reasonable. You can't live alone forever. You need someone to take care of your affairs. Someone like you? I shot back. People who plan to rob me and then throw me out like an old dog? No one was going to throw you out. The home we chose is very good. It has gardens and activities. There it was. The full, unvarnished confession. She wasn't even bothering to deny it anymore. A home with gardens and activities. And when I challenged, my voice dangerously low, "Did you ask me if I wanted gardens and activities?" David ran his hands through his hair in utter frustration. Because we knew you would say no. You're too stubborn to accept help. Help? Is selling my house help? Is stealing my life savings help? We weren't going to steal anything. The money was going to be used to take care of you. Lies. The money was going to be used for you to live comfortably while I rotted away in a nursing home. Amber started crying again, those same manipulative tears she deployed whenever things didn't go her way. Mother-in-law, please. We're family. We can fix this. Family? I scoffed. You call this family? I walked to the garden and, with a deliberate hand, cut a perfect white rose from the bush I had planted the day my granddaughter was born. I held it, feeling the soft thorns against my fingers. Do you know what real family is? Family is Helen, who bravely warned me about your plans. Family is Mr. Davies, who helped me protect my rights without asking for anything in return. Family is this land that has sustained me for 40 years. But where's your blood? David shouted, desperate. Blood means nothing if the heart is rotten. Catherine stepped forward, then, with that fake smile she reserved for special occasions. Margaret, let's be practical. You need us more than you think. Who's going to take care of you when you get sick? Who's going to manage the farm business? I will take care of myself, as I have for 73 years, I declared, my voice resonating with newfound authority. And as for the farm business, I have some news for you. I returned to the porch and took from my purse the papers I had signed that morning with Mr. Davies. Yesterday, I signed a new will. Everything I have will go to a foundation that helps abused women. Not a single cent. Not an inch of land will be for you. The silence that followed was different from all the others. It was a crushing silence of defeat, of utterly destroyed plans, of dreams of easy money evaporating like dew in the morning sun. David sat on the step again, but this time not like a child seeking forgiveness. He sat like a man who finally, irrevocably, understood the devastating consequences of his actions. Mom, you can't do that. I'm your only son. Being my only son gave you rights, David, but it also gave you obligations. And you chose to betray me instead of taking care of me. Amber had stopped crying. Now she was looking at me with a pure, unmasked rage that finally revealed her true, ugly face. You're crazy. Completely crazy. David, do something. What do you want me to do? He mumbled. I don't know, but you can't let her take everything from us. No one is taking anything from you, I said calmly, firmly. You are simply losing something that was never truly yours. The sun had completely set, and the first tentative stars were beginning to prickle the violet sky. It was time for them to leave. Go, I told them, my voice firm. This house is no longer your home. David looked at me as if the words simply hadn't registered, as if it were an impossible reality that his mother, the woman who had cleaned his scraped knees and prepared his favorite meals for 40 years, was now telling him to leave. Mom, you can't be serious. I have never been more serious in my life. Amber then approached, her face contorted with the desperation of a cornered animal, making her look ugly despite all her makeup. Mother-in-law, think carefully. Without us, you have no one. What are you going to do when you get sick? When you need help? I'm going to do the same thing I've always done, I responded, my gaze unwavering. Solve my problems on my own. But you're 73 years old. And you're 35, but you act like you're 5. Age is no excuse for being useless, Amber. Catherine had already climbed into the car, probably calculating that this battle was utterly lost. But she shouted from the open window, Margaret, this isn't over. We have legal rights. The papers you signed give us power. Oh, those papers? I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder I'd taken to the lawyer. Are you referring to these papers that have already been nullified? Or these other ones, where it's proven that you pressured me to sign without proper legal representation? Her face collapsed. Even from a distance, I could see how the crushing reality hit her like a physical hammer blow. That's impossible. Those documents are valid. They were valid until Mr. Davies proved there was emotional coercion. It turns out the law actually protects senior citizens from abuse of children. Who would have thought? David stood up abruptly, so fast the porch planks creaked under his weight. We are not abusive. Everything we did was for your own good. For my own good, David? I challenged. Look around. Look at this farm I built with my own hands. Look at this house where I raised you. Do you really think I don't know what's good for me? I walked to the garden, to my roses, the same ones I had planted when he was little, the same ones that prompted him to ask why flowers had thorns. To protect themselves from those who want to hurt them, I had explained then. I never imagined that one day he would be one of those threats. Look, David, do you see these roses? I said, my voice softer now, yet filled with a steel edge. I planted them 20 years ago. I've cared for them, pruned them, protected them from pests. No one else knows how to care for them like I do. No one else knows how much water they need, when to fertilize them, how to protect them from the cold. I turned back to him, still holding the white rose I had cut. This farm is the same. I know how every foot of this land works. I know every tree, every animal, every problem that can arise. I've managed droughts, floods, pests, low prices, high prices. I've done it alone for years, especially after your father died. But, Mom, no. Let me finish. In all these years, did you ever see me fail? Did a harvest ever get lost because of me? Were we ever unable to pay the bills? Did this family ever go hungry? He couldn't answer, because the answer, unequivocally, was no. I had never failed. I had never let anything bad happen to this family. So why, I pressed, my voice low and dangerous, did you decide I could no longer take care of myself? Why? Because Amber told me that. There at the island. Amber told you? And since when does Amber know more about my life than I do? Amber stepped forward, her fists clenched, her face a mask of fury. I was just trying to help. Your son was worried about you. Lies. My son was worried about the money, and you were worried about getting a house without ever having to work for it. That's not true, she shrieked. Isn't it? Then explain to me why the day after I signed those papers, you had already set aside $50,000 to buy an apartment in the city. David's face went utterly white. He hadn't known that I had seen the messages on his phone when he'd carelessly left it on the table during lunch. How do you know that? He stammered. Because I'm not blind, David, nor deaf, nor stupid. I saw the messages with the real estate agent. I saw the floor plans for the apartment you wanted to buy with my money. Catherine got out of the car again, but this time she looked like a wounded beast, all pretense of elegance gone. All of this is normal. Children always inherit from their parents. We were just speeding up the process. Speeding up? Do you mean you were waiting for me to die? No. I mean it was logical to plan for the future. The future? My future? Without ever asking me what I wanted for my own future? I walked slowly to the fence that divided my property from Helen's. In the distance, I could see the warm light from her kitchen. She was probably making dinner, utterly unaware that the defining war of the rest of my life was unfolding right here. Do you know what my future was in your plans? 3 bland meals a day in a communal dining room. A single bed in a room I would share with a stranger. Scheduled activities, as if I were a 5-year-old child. Visits once a month, if you even found the time. The home we chose was very good. Amber protested. Did you visit it? I shot back. Well, we saw the pictures online. The pictures online? You were going to lock up your husband's mother in a place you hadn't even bothered to see in person? David then approached, that lost child's face. Back, the one that still broke my heart despite everything. Mom, forgive me. I know we messed up, but we can fix this. We can start over. For a moment, just a fleeting moment, I was tempted to forgive. To hug him like when he was little and plagued by nightmares. To tell him everything was going to be okay. But then I remembered the cruel conversation I had overheard just 3 nights ago, when they thought I was asleep. David telling Amber, it won't be long now. When she's in the home, we can do whatever we want with the farm. Start over? I repeated, my voice ice cold. As if nothing happened? Yes, exactly. We can forget all this. David, look me in the eyes. He did. In those eyes, I saw the boy he had once been, but also the man he had become, a man capable of betraying his own mother for mere money. I can't forget. And even if I could, I don't want to. Why? Because what you did taught me something important. That family is not just blood. Family is respect. It is affection. It is protection. You took all 3 things from me. Amber started walking towards the car, dragging her feet on the ground in frustrated defeat. David, let's go. She's not going to change her mind. I'm not leaving. She's my mom. Your mom has already made her decision, and we can't stay here like beggars. David looked at me one last time. In his eyes, I saw something I had never witnessed before, a dawning, terrible understanding that he had lost something forever. Not just the inheritance, not just the money, but he had truly lost his mother. Is there really no way to fix this? There was a way, David. It was called not betraying me. Mom, go. Please, before I say something I might regret. He stood there, frozen, for what felt like an eternity, but was likely only minutes. Finally, he turned and walked towards the car with slow, heavy steps, as if each movement caused him physical pain. Before getting in, he turned one last time. I love you, Mom. I loved you, too, David. Past tense. The car roared to life, kicking up another cloud of dust. I watched the taillights recede down the winding road until they became 2 faint red dots swallowed by the encroaching darkness. When they disappeared completely, I slowly sat down on the porch step. For the first time in days, everything was utterly silent. And for the first time in years, that silence didn't feel empty or lonely. It felt like profound, liberating peace. I sat on the porch step until the stars completely filled the velvety black sky. The night air, thick with the scent of jasmine and damp earth, had always calmed me. But that night, it carried a different flavor. It tasted, unequivocally, of freedom. Helen appeared on the winding path connecting our properties, walking slowly, a steaming mug cradled in her hands. Mind if I sit with you? She asked, though her eyes already held the answer. Not at all. In fact, I need the company. She settled onto the step beside me and offered me the mug. Hot chocolate with cinnamon. Exactly what my weary soul needed in that profound moment. I saw them leave, she said softly after a while. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, I replied, a quiet certainty in my voice. We sat in comfortable silence, sharing the warmth of the chocolate. Helen possessed that rare wisdom of knowing precisely when to speak and when to simply be present. You know what's the strangest thing? I finally confessed. I thought I would feel heartbroken. I thought I would cry, that I would regret it all. And you don't feel that way? She prompted gently. No. I feel free. As if a crushing weight I didn't even realize I was carrying has finally been lifted from my shoulders. Helen nodded slowly, her gaze thoughtful. My grandmother used to say that sometimes you have to prune the sick branches so the tree can grow healthy. Her words resonated deeply within me. That night, I slept better than I had in months. I didn't wake up at 3 a.m, anxiously worrying if I had properly secured the bank accounts. I didn't get up consumed by what new excuse Amber would invent to demand money. For the first time in a very, very long while, my mind was utterly at peace. The next morning, as I was making my coffee, the phone rang. For a brief moment, I braced myself, expecting David's voice, full of feigned apology or renewed manipulation. But it was Mr. Davies. Mrs. Margaret, good morning. How are you feeling? Like new, Mr. Davies. And you? Very well. I'm calling because I wanted to confirm some details of the will we signed yesterday. Are you absolutely sure about your decisions? More sure than ever. Perfect. I also wanted to inform you that your son came to my office very early this morning. He wanted to know if there was any way to contest the changes you made. I wasn't surprised. David had always been relentlessly persistent when he wanted something. And what did you tell him? I explained that the documents are perfectly legal and that you are in full possession of your mental faculties. I also suggested that if he truly wanted to reconcile with you, he should come and talk to you directly, not through lawyers. And what did he say? He left without a word. After hanging up, I knew it was time to start my new life in earnest. I couldn't dwell on the past, lamenting what was lost. I had to build something new, something profoundly meaningful. I walked all over the farm, seeing it with completely new eyes. It was no longer just the property I had inherited from my husband, it was no longer just the place where I had raised my son. Now, it was my future, my project, my legacy. The house, I realized, needed extensive repairs. The kitchen roof, for example, had leaks we had ignored for months because, according to Amber, we didn't have the money to fix it. But now that I no longer had to support 3 non-working adults, I most certainly did have the money. I called Mr. Peterson, the town's trusted contractor, an honest man who had worked for us for years. Mrs. Margaret, what a pleasure to hear from you. How can I help? Mr. Peterson, I need you to come and look at the house. I want to make all the repairs we've been putting off. All of them. Are you sure? That's going to be a big project. I have time, and I have money. When can you come? I'll stop by tomorrow morning if that works for you. Next, I called Dr. Bell, the veterinarian. For months, I had yearned to buy more chickens and perhaps some goats, but Catherine had always complained about the noise and the smell. Dr. Bell, this is Margaret. Could you advise me on expanding my coop? Of course. What do you have in mind? I want to start a small farm. Chickens, goats, maybe some pigs. Something that will give me a steady income, but also keep me busy. That sounds like an excellent idea. Is your family on board? My family is me, doctor, and I am completely on board. That afternoon, Helen and I sat at the dining room table, making enthusiastic plans. She brought paper and pencil, and I excitedly laid all my ideas on the table. What if we start a small, home-cooked meal business? Helen suggested, her eyes sparkling. Your cooking is delicious, and I know how to make preserves and jams. Do you think it would work? I asked, a thrill of possibility running through me. There's no one in town who sells homemade food anymore. All the women work outside the home now. I'm sure there's a market. We started crunching the numbers. With the savings I no longer had to share with David and his family, I could invest in basic equipment for a small commercial kitchen. And we could sell at the Saturday market, Helen added, or even do home delivery. For the first time in years, I was genuinely excited about something. I had a project, a purpose, a compelling reason to get up every morning that wasn't just mere survival. That night, as I ate dinner alone in the kitchen, I realized something profound. The house felt bigger, not emptier, bigger, as if I had reclaimed spaces I didn't even know I had lost. At 9 o'clock that night, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Margaret? The voice was young, shy. Yes, this is Margaret. Who is this, please? It's Jeremy's wife, your neighbor Mrs. Thompson's son. She gave me your number. Jeremy, the smart young man who had studied business administration and now worked in the city. What can I do for you, honey? Mrs. Thompson told me you're thinking of starting a food business. I work in marketing, and I was wondering if you would need any help. What kind of help? Well, I could help you with social media, with label design, with promotion. I would absolutely love to be part of a project like that. And how much would you charge for that help? Nothing at first. If the business works out, we could talk about a small partnership. But first, I just want to help you get off the ground. I hung up the phone with a huge, radiant smile. I didn't just have a project anymore. I had a team. The next day, Mr. Peterson arrived early with his tape measure and notebook. We meticulously went over the entire house, from the roof to the foundations. Mrs. Margaret, this house is solid. It just needs some love and maintenance. How long would it take to make it like new? About 3 months, working every day. But it's going to look like a palace. Do it. While Mr. Peterson was taking measurements, I walked to the back of the property, to a spot where I had always dreamed of building a small workshop. My late husband had dreamed of having his own carpentry shop there, but we never found the time or the money. Now, I had both. I took out my phone and dialed the number of a construction company. Good morning. I need a quote for a new construction. What type of construction? A carpentry workshop. And right next to it, a small commercial kitchen. When do you need it by? I'm in no hurry, but I want it to be perfect. For the first time in 73 years, I was building something just for me, without having to ask for permission, without having to justify expenses, without having to listen to complaints about the noise or the mess. It was my money, my land, my decision, and it felt utterly glorious. 6 months passed before I heard from David again. 6 transformative months during which my life changed completely, as if I had finally emerged from a restrictive chrysalis and learned to truly fly. The house was now breathtakingly beautiful. Mr. Peterson hadn't exaggerated, it truly looked like a palace, with new roofs, gleaming restored floors, and walls painted a soft, sunny yellow that made the whole house feel perpetually bathed in light. The commercial kitchen buzzed with efficiency, and the carpentry workshop was precisely as my husband would have dreamed it. Helen and I had cultivated our home-cooked meal project into a flourishing small empire. We sold delectable pies on Tuesdays, exquisite pastries on Thursdays, and our homemade preserves every single day. On weekends, the town market overflowed with people who came specifically to buy our cherished products. Mrs. Margaret, Mr. Henderson, the notary, would tell me every time he passed our bustling stall, "You've aged backwards 10 years." And it was true. I felt stronger, clearer, more vibrantly alive than I had in a very long time. I worked tirelessly from 5 in the morning until 7 at night, but it was work that filled me with profound satisfaction, not draining me as before. Jeremy's wife, Ashley, had been an absolute blessing. She created a social media page that quickly garnered thousands of followers, naming it Grandma Margaret's Kitchen. Although I protested, I wasn't anyone's grandmother, the name stuck. We had hired 3 bright young women from the town, eager for work and quick to learn. The house, which had been so eerily quiet for years, now resonated with laughter and lively conversation from early morning till late. We had even started a small, vital program to help women in difficult situations, women who, like me, had been manipulated or mistreated by their own families. We taught them practical skills, offered temporary work, and helped them secure legal advice. "It's as if this house had been waiting all this time for you to wake it up," Ashley remarked one afternoon. She was right. The house had been sleeping, patiently waiting for me to find the courage to finally live my own life. It was a Tuesday afternoon when David finally arrived. I was in the workshop, sanding some boards for a new shelf, when I heard his car on the road. But this time, he didn't arrive with anger or desperation. He came alone, walking slowly, like someone who had come to genuinely apologize. I watched him from the workshop window. He had lost weight, his clothes looked less cared for, and he sported a several-day-old beard that made him look older, wearier. He stood in the yard, looking at all the profound changes, as if he couldn't quite believe it was the same house. I came out of the workshop, wiping my hands on my apron. I didn't run to him, but I didn't hide either. "Hi, Mom." "Hello, David." We stood there, separated by a few feet that felt like miles. "The house looks different. It's alive again." He nodded slowly, as if he understood the deeper message behind my words. "Can I sit down?" "It's your decision." He sat on the porch step, in the exact same spot he had sat last time, but now he looked small, defeated. "Mom, I came to apologize." I didn't answer. I had learned the profound power of silence. I know what we did was wrong. I know there's no excuse, but I wanted you to know that I've realized everything. Everything what? That you were right. That Amber manipulated me. That I lost the most important person in my life because of greed. And Amber? She left 3 months ago. She took everything she could and left with a man she met in the city. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. I didn't feel pity either. It was simply information. And Catherine? She's in a nursing home. Her own son committed her when she ran out of money. The irony was perfectly brutal, but I said nothing. "Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know it's probably too late, but I wanted you to know that I've learned, Ned. That by losing you, I realized what truly matters in life." I sat in the rocking chair, but maintained my distance. "What do you want, David?" "Nothing. I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm just here to tell you that I love you, that I've always loved you, even if my actions said otherwise." "And what have you been doing these months?" "Working. I work in construction now. It's hard, but it's honest. I sleep in a rented room, eat at cheap diners. I'm trying to understand how I became so stupid." For the first time in our conversation, his eyes filled with real tears, not tears of manipulation, but of genuine remorse. "I see the life you've built without us. And I realize that we were the ones holding you back. You didn't need us to take care of you. We were the ones who needed you." At that moment, Helen came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Margaret, everything okay?" "Everything's fine." "Helen, I'd like you to meet David, my son." Helen looked at him with that piercing gaze older women have when they're sizing up a man, a look that sees straight into the soul. "A pleasure, David. I've heard a lot about you." David turned a deep red, clearly embarrassed. He knew exactly what kind of things Helen had heard about him. "The pleasure is mine, ma'am. Are you staying for dinner?" David looked at me, waiting for my answer. "You can stay if you want, but not as family. As a guest." "I understand." Helen left, but not before winking at me. She knew she was giving me space to decide what to do. "Mom, do you think that someday we could try to be a family again?" I don't know, David. Family isn't something you can break and glue back together like a vase. Once trust is shattered, things are never truly the same again. I know, but maybe they could be different. Better. Better how? More honest. More respectful. More real. I looked at him for a long time. In his eyes, I no longer saw the manipulative man who had tried to rob me. I saw the boy he had been, but I also saw something new, genuine humility. Do you know what you have to do if you want to try to rebuild something with me? What? You have to earn it. Not with words, but with actions. You have to prove to me, over months, maybe years, that you have truly changed. How? By working honestly. By living honestly. By respecting my decisions, even if you don't like them. By treating me like a whole human being, not like an old woman who needs to be cared for. And if I do all that? If you do all that, maybe someday we can be friends. But we will never go back to being the mother and son we were before. That relationship died the day you decided to betray me. He was quiet for a long time, processing my words. Finally, he nodded. I understand. And I accept those conditions. Good. Then you can start by staying for dinner. But then you leave. And if you want to come back, you let me know beforehand. Thank you, Mom. You don't know what this means to me. Don't call me Mom yet. Call me Margaret. You have to earn the right to call me Mom again. That night, the three of us, Helen, David, and I, had dinner in an unusual silence. David ate slowly, as if it were the first home-cooked meal he'd had in months. It probably was. When he finished, he helped me wash the dishes without being asked. Helen had quietly gone to her house, leaving us alone. The food was delicious, he told me. Thank you. Can I ask you something? Ask. Are you happy? The question took me completely by surprise. No one had asked me that in years. Yes, I said after a moment's thought. For the first time in a very long time, I am happy. He left that night without promising to return, without asking for anything more. He just left. And for the first time in months, the goodbye didn't feel like a war. 3 weeks later, David returned. This time, he called before coming, just as I had stipulated. Margaret, can I visit you on Sunday? I wanted to help you with something if you need it. Help me with what? With whatever. I know you have the food business. Maybe you need someone to carry heavy things or fix something. The offer genuinely surprised me. For years, David had meticulously avoided any physical labor on the farm, always armed with an excuse: his back hurt, he had important things to do, that kind of work was for employees. Come on Sunday at 8 in the morning, I replied, a cautious flicker of hope stirring within me. There are a few things I need fixed. He arrived on time, dressed in practical work clothes and old boots. He looked different, thinner, but also stronger, as if the physical labor had toughened him in a good way. What do you need me to do? The goat pen needs repairing. Some of the boards are loose. He worked for 4 hours straight, without a single complaint. I watched him from the kitchen window while I prepared dough for pastries. He moved differently now, with more care, with more respect for the tools and materials. He was not the same man who once considered this type of work beneath him. At noon, I brought him a glass of cold water and a plate of food. Thank you, he said, sitting on the ground, leaning against a tree to eat. Why are you doing this, David? Fixing the pen, all of this, coming, working, acting like you're a different person. He chewed slowly before answering. Because when I lost you, I realized I had lost the only person who really knew me. The only one who loved me unconditionally. I loved you unconditionally until you put conditions on it, I stated, a pang of old hurt still there. I know. And I also realized something else. What? That I never really knew you. I thought you were just my mom, the woman who took care of me. But you're so much more than that. He looked around, taking in the thriving business, the vibrant improvements to the house, the new energy pulsing through everything. You're a businesswoman. You're a leader. You're a woman who can build an incredible life from scratch. And I was so blind I didn't see it. His words resonated deeply with me, but I didn't let myself get carried away by emotion. And what do you want to do with that information? I want to get to know you for real. As the person you are, not as the idea I had of you. That's going to take time. I have time. He finished his work and left without asking for anything more, without asking when he could come back, without suggesting we eat together, without trying to force an intimacy that no longer existed. Over the next few months, David came every 2 weeks. He always called beforehand. He always came to work. He fixed the roof of the chicken coop, painted the fence, and helped build a new storage area for the burgeoning business. Helen watched him with the careful prudence of an older woman who had witnessed many broken promises. "What do you think of him?" I asked her one afternoon. "He's trying to be different, but time will tell if it's real or just an act." How can I tell the difference? Men who really change don't make a show of their change. They just change. She was right. David didn't talk much during his visits. He didn't try to impress me with grand gestures or dramatic promises. He just worked, quietly ate what I offered, and then left. One day, he arrived with fresh bruises on his hands. "What happened to you?" "A fight at work. A coworker was harassing a new girl, saying nasty things to her. I told him to stop, and he told me to mind my own business. I told him that respecting women was my business. He hadn't said those words to impress me, he had said them because they were the truth. And for the first time in months, I felt something akin to pride for my son. But the real, undeniable change I saw 6 months later, when he arrived accompanied by an older woman. "Margaret, I'd like you to meet Mrs. Davis. She's my boss on the construction site." Mrs. Davis was a woman in her 60s, her face weathered by the sun and hard work, with intelligent eyes and strong, capable hands. "Mrs. Margaret," she said, a warm smile on her face, "your son has told me a lot about you. I wanted to meet the woman who raised one of my best workers." David turned bright red, clearly embarrassed. He knew exactly what kind of things Helen had heard about him. "David is responsible, punctual, and never complains about hard work," Mrs. Davis continued, her voice full of genuine admiration. "But most importantly, he respects the women on the team. That's not common in this business." After they left, I couldn't stop thinking about Mrs. Davis's words. David had truly changed, not just with me, but in every aspect of his life. He called me that night. "Margaret, tell me," he began, "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For giving me the chance to get to know you, and for teaching me what respect truly means." "I didn't teach you anything, David. You decided to learn." "Maybe, but you had to be very strong to cut me off when it was necessary. Another mother would have forgiven me without another thought, and I would have remained the same terrible man. And now I'm different. Not perfect, but different. And it's thanks to you having the courage to tell me the truth." A year after that first, tentative reconciliation visit, David arrived with a surprising proposal. "Margaret, I've been thinking about something." "About what?" "Would you like for us to be partners?" "Partners in what?" "In the business. Not as a son who inherits, but as a partner who contributes work and earns his share." The idea genuinely intrigued me. "What would you contribute?" "Physical labor, deliveries, building a larger kitchen if you decide to expand, and something more important, respect for your leadership." "And what would you want in return?" "A fair salary, a share of the profits if the business grows, and maybe someday, if I earn it, for you to call me your son again." I looked at him for a long time. In his face, I no longer saw the manipulative man who had tried to rob me. I saw someone who had paid the steep price for his mistakes and had decided to build something far better. And what if things go wrong? If we fight again? Then we part ways as partners who didn't work out, but not as enemies. And if it works, we build something together, something we can both be proud of. It was a risky proposal, but it was also an undeniably honest one. Give me time to think about it. All the time you need. That night, I spoke with Helen. What do you think? I think he's not the same man who betrayed you, but I also think you're not the same woman who let herself be betrayed. Do you think you should try? I think you should do what makes you happy, but with your eyes wide open. 2 weeks later, I gave him my answer. I accept the partnership, but with very clear conditions. Whatever you say. A written contract, a review every 6 months. And at the first sign of disrespect, it's all over. I accept. Good. Then we start on Monday. And David, yes, you can call me Mom again. You've earned it. For the first time in almost 2 years, I saw him cry. But these were tears of profound gratitude, not of manipulation. Thank you, Mom. I won't fail you again. I know. Because if you do, this time there won't be a third chance. I know, and I promise you won't need one. 3 years have now passed since David and I forged our new partnership, 3 years in which we have built something neither of us could have ever imagined when everything fell apart. The business grew beyond our wildest dreams. Grandma Margaret's Kitchen now boasts 2 thriving locations, one in town and a new one in the city. We proudly employ 15 people, all women from the area who desperately needed decent work and a fresh start. Ashley, the brilliant young woman who helped us with marketing, is now our invaluable general manager. But the most important thing isn't the swelling numbers in the bank accounts. The most important thing is what we rebuilt as a family. David has kept every single one of his promises. He works tirelessly from 5 in the morning until night, handles all deliveries, and supervises the construction of new facilities. And never, not once, has he questioned my decisions as the boss. You know what I like most about working with you? He told me recently, as we were loading boxes for a large delivery. What? That I finally see you for who you really are. Not as the mom who took care of me, but as the smart and strong woman you always were. Those words filled my heart in a way I hadn't felt in years. Helen is still my partner and my best friend, and she now officially lives in the house with me. We converted the guest room into her cozy personal bedroom. And at night, we often sit on the porch, planning new projects while sipping the herbal tea we grow in our own garden. Can you imagine if they had told us 5 years ago that we would be successful businesswomen in our 70s? She chuckled. I would have told you that you were crazy, I replied, a wide smile spreading across my face, and you would have been wrong. The program to help abused women grew into a real foundation. We now have a small, safe shelter at the back of the property where W.